This special presentation, Dan Neaverth, the kid from Keppel Street on WBBZ-TV 5, is sponsored by Hector's Hardware, with 6 locations in Western New York.
Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. A friend of mine recently asked me what career move might have been the most surprising for me along my journey. Well, I had to think about it for a while, but I think the time I would have spent as a professional basketball player might be the one that takes the cake. Yes, for those of you who don't know, I, at one point, was quite the jock. And I ended up playing professional basketball for a team right here in Buffalo that, well, won some very interesting games. What? The Braves? No, not the Buffalo Braves. It was a team that was even more entertaining and more legendary. Yes, I played for none other than the KB Yo-Yos, the famous team that fielded by the proud employees of that 50,000-watt giant on the East Coast, WKBW radio. I played with such well-known basketball greats as Sandy Beach, Fred Clustine, Don Burns, Jack Armstrong. Naturally, I was the ringer, somebody to make those guys look good. And there was another guy, too, a goofy kind of guy, always getting into trouble. What was his name? It was Dennis, Dwight, Donnie. The guy was so out of it, he couldn't even find his way to the games. I had to drive him. We'd be on the thruway, I'd stop at a toll booth, I'd roll down the window to pay the toll keeper, and my passenger seat partner would start saying he was born in the US, he had nothing to declare. I mean, it was embarrassing, I gotta tell you. His name...
Hey there, Phil.
Wow, it's Ron Shawnee. How's it going? The famous entrepreneur videographer.
Well, I just happened to be walking by and I heard you talking about the old days and those old goofy guys in radio.
Yeah, that was fun times. Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name. I was just...
Are you talking about Dan Neaverth?
Danny Neaverth. Yeah, that's the guy. How do you know Danny? Does he owe you money too?
Owe me money? Dan, you know, he is cheap, but he is a good guy. Dan Neaverth. Always moved my fanny. What a guy.
Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Danny. Good morning.
And I'm Dan Neaverth, KB Radio Music. Got up bright and early this morning just to be the first kid on the block to say good morning to you.
Good morning from the cast of the Dan Neaverth Wake Up Bar on KB.
Don't you know we love you, Danny?
Everybody move to Danny.
Danny gets you up the candy way.
Morning, y'all.
I'm not some big shot from radio and television, okay? I'm Dan Neaverth from number 8 Keppel Street, South Buffalo. Very humble beginnings, really. As a matter of fact, we never owned a house on Keppel Street. Grew up there as an only child. And the nuns at St. Monica's, because I was an only child and every other family had 6 to 12 kids, they thought I was spoiled. If you're an only child, you have everything. I had none of that, okay? My dad worked in a bank when bankers didn't make very much money. He never had a car. He got on the bus to go downtown to work at the bank, M&T Bank. My parents were very, very proud of me. I'd hear it from people on the street, people I'd meet at banquets somewhere, people that I'd meet at church, and they say, oh, they're so proud of you. But the problem is this, they never told me how proud they were. My first idea about being in broadcasting really wasn't about being a disc jockey, because I was quite young at the time, and we were listening to radio broadcasts, and there were certain things that I would hear that really, really piqued my interest and excited me. I would listen to Jack Benny.
Oh, say, Mr. Benny.
Now what?
Can I have your permission to do a guest spot tomorrow on a dramatic program?
Dramatic program? What's the name of it?
The Mean Old Man.
And Jonathan Winters was another one who was really kind of an idol to me because he could do all these crazy voices.
Toro, aquí, mueve este lado, mueve este lado, toro, mueve este lado, no, se toro.
And people later on would say, "Boy, Dan, you're so unusual, you're so unique." What I did was I picked and choose from various things that really interested me, put them all together, and doing it myself. We had a little radio station in the Boys Club of Buffalo on Babcock Street. And we built it ourselves. It was Danny McBride, myself, Joey Reynolds. We even had a commercial. We had Vi and Amel's Casa de Pizza. We would run this commercial, and at the end of the week, they would give us a pizza. And when, you know, with 5 guys, the pizza went pretty quick. The big payoff for us was we played records, and we were disc jockeys. Wow, okay, we loved that. So I went home one day and made the big announcement to my mother and father. I said, "I have something very important to tell you." And my father said, "You're pregnant?" I said, "No, he didn't say that. My father didn't say that." Okay, but I just thought I'd throw that in. And so I said, "I'd like to be in broadcasting." And they said, "Okay, we got to go to college for that." And I said, "Well, my grades aren't that great. And I'm not the smartest guy at Bishop Diamond High School." I went downtown to WWOL, and I was talking to Bruce Bradley, who was the Guy King at the time, and I said, I'd like to get into broadcasting, but I don't think I'd go to college. He said, "Well, I didn't go to college either." He said, "I went to the Curran Studios in Syracuse." So I wrote a letter to Jack Curran, who owned the Curran Studios, and told him I was interested. And so eventually I went there. So years later, people would say, "Dan, where'd you go to school?" And I would say, "Syracuse." Now, they would assume that I meant Syracuse University. I never said that. I just said Syracuse. I've never been on the campus at Syracuse University. But whatever they wanted to think, I wasn't going to stop them. My dad, we got in the car, took me to 6 or 7 different radio stations. Went to Hornell, went to Jamestown. We went to 2 or 3 other places, small town radio stations. And I ended up, strangely enough, one that I had never gone to, in Coudersport, Pennsylvania. So I went to Coudersport with my dad, talked to him, and they hired me. And that was the beginning of the career in Coudersport. It was a learning experience. I wasn't nervous at all. Now, remember, I've never been on the radio at that point. But I just felt confident, not cocky, not being arrogant, just confident, felt comfortable. Because then I realized that I was going to be a disc jockey, I was going to read the news, I was going to be an announcer and entertainer on the Allegheny Mountain Jamboree on WFRM, a farm and home broadcasting company. From Coudersport, I went to WFCB in Dunkirk, New York. I went to work for Ollie Schmidt. Ollie Schmidt was a wonderful owner. He was a little strange at times. I was the last voice heard on WFCB. We decided we weren't making enough money, so we formed a union. And during negotiations, things weren't going anywhere, so we went on strike. So the strike was supposed to start at 6 o'clock at night, and normally I would read the 6 o'clock newscast before I would play music after the news. So you did a little bit of everything. So here's what happened. Just before 6 o'clock, WFCB, Dunkirk, New York. Stay tuned for the 6 o'clock news. Out of the station. Never set foot in the station again. right after Dunkirk and being on strike, I needed to find another job. And this was fortunately in Buffalo at WBNY. And we were playing what they called, at the time, they had so many commercials, they played mini tunes. Now, a mini tune was a record, usually an instrumental, sometimes a vocal, of a hit record. They would cover it, but it would only last a minute and 2 or a minute and 10 seconds, okay? And they would play these songs because they had so many commercials. They decided we're going to try something different. So they sent Don Chrissy, who worked at the station, they sent him to Omaha, Nebraska to listen to this station out there that had this new concept.
KOWH in Omaha.
They played only 40 songs total, but they were all hit records. And so he was out there for 3 or 4 days, and he came back with some tapes of the station. And that's when they decided we were going to go top 40. WBNY became the first pop music station. This went on for maybe 2 or 3 months, and they hired a program director by the name of Dick Lawrence. And Dick Lawrence came in, and we did record hops, and we're doing a lot of different things. But like so many people during that era, if you have a chance to make $20 more a week at a different station, you'd take it. So I decided I was going to go to WKBW. This was before they were playing Top 40. Dick Lawrence was very upset with me for leaving. And strangely enough, and it was a horrific thing, he ends up being the new program director at WKBW, where I'm working. Hated me, absolutely hated me. And just about that time, I was getting ready to be married. And so we did get married and go away on a honeymoon. And we came back. He called me into his office and he said, I don't want you doing any stuff other than time and temperature. So I decided, I'm not going to do that. So I started doing my shtick.
Hi, this is the old daffy one, your friend Dan Neaverth, right here at the top of everybody's radio dial, WKBW.
And he came in and he's swearing at the top of his voice at me. And he said, you're going down to the owner's office right now. So I go down to the owner's office, who happened to be Dr. Clinton Churchill. He was the pastor of and the owner of Churchill Tabernacle. And he did a radio show, a religious radio show. He was sitting behind his desk. So he said to me, young man, you're being insubordinate, and you will listen to whatever the program director tells you to do, you will do. And I said, and he cannot call me what he called me. He called me and then I filled in all the obscenities that he had screamed at me. Dr. Churchill, you can't talk that way in front of a man of God. And I said, and he can't talk that way to me. So he said, give him another position. So I said, what is the position, Dr. Churchill? And he said, well, make him a newsman.
This is Dan Neaverth with the final report of the day from Shirkston, Ontario. As midnight approaches, the youngster disappeared at 5:30 yesterday afternoon.
That was segment 1. We'll be right back with the next segment right after this. Stay tuned.
Hector's Hardware is celebrating their 70th anniversary, and we want to say thank you for being a part of that journey. Hector's Hardware has 6 convenient locations and is family-owned and operated. It's a real neighborhood hardware store. Hector's has everything you need to get the job done. They have a full line of Toro snowblowers, along with ice melt and scrapers. So, for all of your hardware needs, visit the Hector's Hardware closest to you. Hector's is one heck of a hardware store.
Good morning from the cast of the Dan Neaverth Wake Up Hour on TV.
I realized that my time at KB Radio was coming to an end, and I should leave. I wasn't forced to leave because I had a contract there, but I decided it's time to go. So I went to WGR, which was a pretty good station. They didn't have great ratings, but they had a tremendous staff of people, including a name you're probably still familiar with, John Otto. And so I went to the station, had a decent salary, had fun working there, good people. But on the day that I realized that we were going to have our very first child, Dan Jr., they took an hour away from my show. And that was very costly because our salaries were based on how many hours we worked. So at that point, I realized it was time to move again. And where am I going to go? In Buffalo, there didn't seem to be anything else that was, going to pop up. So I applied at WNDR in Syracuse, New York. It was one of the top stations there. So they accepted me and they said, yeah, come on down. You're going to be our morning guy. And that was a pretty good position. So the day that I was scheduled to leave for Syracuse, I got a call from Clint Churchill Jr., who had now taken over the reins at KB Radio. And he said, you know what? I was going to ask you to come back to the station, but he said, I read in the paper that you're leaving and you're going to Syracuse. Wait. Maybe I could work something out. He said, well, if you can, let's see what happens here. So I called the program director at WNDR and I said to him, if I come there, it may cost my marriage because my wife is very close to the family and all her friends are here. And I feel that I can't do this. And he said, all right, I understand. We've already started promoting that you're coming here, but can you come down for at least a week and we'll make up a story that, they won't know you went to Hollywood or you got a huge offer somewhere else. So I said, yeah, I could do that.
And you're listening to the Friday number 6 of October 1961 edition of the Dan Neaverth Show.
I was there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Thursday morning after the show, the program director called me in. And he said, we realize you're not happy. And why don't you you can go now. So I said, oh, okay, beautiful. I really appreciate that. Now I'm thinking, there's no way that they're going to pay me for doing a week here or pay me for even doing 4 or 5 days. So strangely enough, they gave me a check and paid me for the entire week. I went back to KB. And I sometimes wonder what would have happened if that whole scenario hadn't unfolded the way it did. It's amazing. I'm glad I did come back because this is home.
When the moonlight goes by and the sun cracks the sky, that's a daddy.
He's always been Dad. He's never been Dan Neaverth, Daffy Dan, Danny Moves Your Fanny Dan. He's always been Dad.
Dad was never a braggart. Dad was never cocky. Nothing more important than his kids. He really didn't want anyone to pursue a career in radio. That was his thing. He had to work 4 hours a day. He struggled. It's not normal, and he'd come home tired.
Family is first, and that's probably what strikes you the most. He's fun, he's silly, but serious at the same time.
He'll do anything to get somebody to laugh. He's funny. He's a clown.
He is cheap, although he's less cheap than he used to be. I'll tell you that. No question about it.
Excuse me, but you see, in the land of KB, that's a daddy.
A lot of memories in this building. This was a barn at one time, and they changed it around and fixed it up. It was okay, but it wasn't anything spectacular. 1430 Main Street. Wow. Whoa, they still have the same rug. That's a sign.
So here we are, 1430 Main Street. And in the history of American broadcasting, this is one of the most legendary addresses, the home of WKBW Radio.
Right over there, program director's office.
Yeah.
It's right there. And then on this side, general manager in here. We had a meeting one time, and the whole staff, and Tommy Shannon was working at KB at the time. He had come back after working in Detroit for a long time. We're all in this meeting, and Tommy stands up and he said, I really probably shouldn't be at this meeting. And everybody's, what do you mean? The general manager sitting there, program director, all the other disc jockeys. I shouldn't be here because I'm taking a job at WGR. I shouldn't hear the plans that you have for the future because I'm going somewhere else. Herb Mendelsohn was the general manager, and I made this production at home with reel-to-reel tape, putting records on a turntable and trying to pick out music. And I did this thing where I went into his office singing how I wanted to get a raise. I needed to get a raise.
There is nothing like a raise, nothing in the world. You can keep your lavish praise, just give Danny Boy here a raise.
And so I played it for him, and he said, oh, that's really neat. And I go back to do my show, and I'm thinking, I don't know if he was impressed or not, if I'm going to get a raise. So during my show, he comes walking back, and he said, did you see this memo? I said, no, what is it? He hands it to me. He said, Herb Mendelsohn is leaving WKBW to go to ABC in New York. Oh. So I spent all that time, okay. So then he walked over to the door, and as he opened the door, he looked back in and he said, oh, by the way, before I leave, you got the raise.
This is where the magic was made, in the back of the building.
Magic, yeah. There's where the magic was made. And oh my goodness, this is something. God, this is it. This is where the studio was, and the control room was over here. In this room, like you said before, this is where the magic happened. I don't know as we even thought of it like that. I really don't. Because we each had our own presentation, the way we did things, and we did some things that even with Top 40 Radio were different. Joey Reynolds and myself used to do a changeover every night, okay? So I would finish my afternoon show, and Joey comes on at 7 o'clock, and we would just start talking.
It's all over, Reynolds. I mean, if you can't be at peace with the world, then what will ever happen to our friendship?
Oh, no, I can't see it. I'm heartbroken.
And program directors would go, oh my God, okay, but you can't talk that long. This is a top 40 station. You gotta play the music, okay? We'll play the music in 15 minutes, okay? When we're done talking.
If you ask the program director, what did those guys do last night? He'd say, I don't know, I try to not listen.
People ask me about rats in my room. Where did that come from? It's really a strange thing. In listening to Joey's show one night, I heard him play a song by an operatic singer. At least she thought she was an operatic singer. One of the songs in one of the albums was Rats in My Room. I am bothered by those rats in my room. And it was so terrible that Joey played it, and it was funny, all right? So I said, Joey, why don't we make a record like that? So he said, yeah, okay, let's do it. So you know where we did it? We did it on McKinley Parkway in a basement that belonged to Tommy Shannon. He had a recording studio in his basement. That's where we recorded Rats in My Room.
Rats in my room. I am bothered by those rats in my room. By those dirty little rats in my room.
It was a stupid song, but I remember this because, as Sandy Beach would tell you, I'm cheap. I could not wait until we got our first check for that song because you had to become a BMI songwriter. The first check that arrived with my name on it, $80. Wow. And I'm thinking, $80? I'm going to get $80 every month for the rest of my life. So Next month, I run out to the mailbox and there's a check. And the check is for $40. And a note that said, until your account equals $80, we will not be sending any more checks. That was it. No more checks. There was a woman who would come into the radio station at night and clean. She was a cleaning woman. And she had a long Polish name, which we didn't know how to pronounce. So Joey Reynolds and myself referred to her as the Polish cleaning lady.
There was always something, and we refer to everything around us. That's what Danny came up with. Whatever was going on was going to be on the air.
Now, she had absolutely no idea what we were doing on the radio. She turned up missing for a couple of weeks. And when she finally came back, it was on my show, and she walked in, and I said, "Where have you been? Have you been on vacation? We haven't seen you in 2 weeks. What happened? What's going on?" And she said, "My husband died." That was live on the radio. What do you say when somebody says that to you and you realize, wow, I should have been a little more careful with that?
When Sandy Beach came here, he was warned by the people he worked with in New England, don't believe anything Dan Neaverth said. He's gonna put you on, and he's gonna give you a rough time and everything. So he was prepared, all right?
The day before I'm actually going to go on the air, and I'm in the recording studio. In the side door is a window.
So I happened to come by, and
I look over there because I see some motion.
I looked in and I go, hey. So come on in.
I don't even know who it is. Okay, so the door opens. In walks a person who says, "Hi, I'm Dan Neaverth. I'm gay." And now, I knew it. The bells went off immediately. So I grabbed him by the ears. I swear to you, his ears. I had his ears in my hand, and I said, "Well, I'm Sandy Beach. That's great, because so am I." That was our meeting. We've been friends ever since. And I've learned he's not gay. Just for those of you keeping score, but I think he is trans. But that's okay. I'm not sure.
And that concludes our first part of our documentary, The Kid from Keppel Street, Dan Neaverth. Stay tuned for next week. We continue with part number 2.
That brings back a lot of memories. Tune in next week. It's going to be great. Thank you for watching The Big Picture. Thank you for watching WBBZ-TV. We really appreciate you.
Give me 5. WBBZ-TV 5.
Shall I see you later, okay? You're going to call me? Sure, I'll call you later. You coming by? I'm going to call you. I'll see you later. All right. Come here. I love you. How are you? You're beautiful. I'll see you later, okay? Call me later. All right. What time? About 6 o'clock. Don't forget to call.
Come on, Jake. Good boy.
This special presentation of Dan Neaverth, the Kid from Keppel Street on WBBZ-TV 5 was sponsored by Hector's Hardware, with 6 locations in Western New York.